We are back after that break. A couple new casters and a couple new games. Our first one on the docket, or the third one, I guess, of the night is EQv4 and HK Rebels. And well, these two teams, they're wanting something different than their first two matches.
Yeah, definitely, V. Exciting to see these two teams going through. They both came in through the open qualifiers, made it to the closed qualifiers, and they made their way on through. So we're seeing both of these teams go on in, and although they are both 0-1, one of them get the opportunity to come into the next match 1-1. So one of these teams will take the victory. Both playing very tough opponents yesterday. So we'll see how things change around.
Yeah, so one of these teams will not be burned. At least they have that honor. But heading into these rosters, we got EQv4. We want to go over, talk about, look at who is actually on that roster. And, well, you've got Burnt Turkey, Doug, Vipoa, Millies, and Rai. I don't know...
That's not EQ4.
Yeah, that's HK
not
Rebels.
EQ4. Well, the HK Rebels get to wear the EQ4 colors today as well. The HK Rebels, we'll talk about them since we saw their roster first. And they had a tough week one draw. They played Oxygen Esports, one of the teams favored to actually take the cake in SCS. And we'll see if that ends up being the case. But as for the HK Rebels, they played a decent game. They were ran around a lot on Bank, and a little bit questionable to see them go to a map like Bank against a professional team like Oxygen. You would have expected something a little more stock standard, but that wasn't the case. Instead, they felt confident in those direct takes, those heavy attacks they wanted to do because their droning lagged, and they tried to get some of these pocket takes to go on through. A few things just fell on short, such as impact grenades and walls. But now we can talk about the EQ4 roster.
Yeah, here's the actual five. We got Zez, Duke, Semi, Zach, and Z. And Zez did not play in the qualifiers. That was high Q. So he's kind of coming in. A difficult first match up against Aerial Arise. It was a 7-1. And so wasn't much opportunity for him to shine. But I mean, it was a couple times for somebody like Duke to shine because he was really that golden pearl that EQv4 had.
EQv4, very, very good team overall, but Duke, really the main player to highlight. 4-1 on entry. That's a big thing to talk about. They played a close match against Aerial Arise, the main team, not the Academy team, which you just watched play, but the main Aerial Arise team, a newer roster as well. We haven't seen much from them. They've had some changes, but EQ4, they played them on Oregon. They played a fairly close map, although it was 7-1. A lot of those rounds we were talking about earlier, V, very, very close. They came down to just a couple seconds, and a couple picks could have gone the other way, and things may have looked better for EQ4.
Yeah, and talking about EQv4, we mentioned a little bit HK Rebels because there was that hiccup, but now we actually want to talk really about HK Rebels. We got their stats, we've got that core five, that Burnt Turkey, Doug, Vipoa, Millies, and Rai. And what was something that I wanted to mention is you kind of talked about them. I loved the adaptation that they did on Bank. It wasn't much that they could actually do up against Oxygen, but the small changes that they make. I mean, the one round that really stood out to me was that smoke plant that they tried to do on the second floor of Bank that was only foiled by Foxay. And well, it's Foxay. He knows how to go outside the box, knows how to counter some of these plans. I think up against a team like EQv4, you do something like that and you're really going to step all over them.
Well, they were very good. Very good overall. HK Rebels, yeah, they got stomped down a little bit. Things didn't go exactly maybe what we expected from them overall, but Doug, like we said, was the shining star. I was watching a little bit of Super Stream back and seeing the entire audience, the entire crowd, everyone in the Twitch chat was going absolutely nuts for Doug, and we'll probably see some good play from Doug today, but I believe we've got another player that we'd like to highlight a little bit more about. Millies. One of those players, very good, been around in the scene for a long time. We'll hear a little bit more from him.
My name is Millies, and I'm a entry fragger for HK Rebels. Personally, I think I'll do okay because I play them in FPL. A lot of them don't like playing me in FPL because I usually do well against them. As a team, it will be a challenge. They are pro league teams, but I do think if we play how we should play, even if we don't beat them, we can make a solid game out of it and maybe prove a couple points to ourselves.
There it is.
Oh my god, good shit, bro.
We've only had one new player in the span of, I'd say, 3 months since August, and that's Rai. Rai has been a huge help to our team. Obviously, he can shoot back against teams that are good, but he also brought in an IGLing dynamic, which we never had. We haven't scrimmed since August, other than maybe twice. All we do is play game days, and now that we have Rai, we actually have an IGL. Other than some attacks that have been kind of fluked from not scrimming, that IGL has made a huge difference, and it's the reason that we pretty much handled 2 CL teams in a row to make it here. It was a walk in the park. Every team we play to just be an absolute slam fest. That probably won't happen. In our confidence with ourselves, I think we can absolutely 7-0 every team we play, every map.
What is this game?
Don't have any weird habits unless you consider me not warming up a habit. An hour before the game, I eat usually something not healthy, take an Adderall, as majority of people in this community think that I do. And then I sit down, I put on my arm sleeve, team death matches and T-hunts, and then go into every game with an open mind. I'm going to say all 5 of us, any one of us individually could make any CL team better, and hopefully we can prove that and show that we're all that good in this upcoming season. I have a few, actually, that I like to play. One is After Dark by Mr. Kitty, Rob Zombie, Dragula, and then I usually end it with Donnie Darko by Cal Scrubby. I kind of set myself up to get into like a tempo with those 3 songs. I suggest you listen to them because they're all incredibly good songs.
Dropping.
Wow.
I've had quite a few. The one that comes back the most is Batman, mainly because my first name is Christopher and my middle name is Nolan. My last name, I'm not going to say my last name, but my last name is very Irish. It starts with MC and C. So I used to get called Irish. All my real life sports coaches have called me Stitious because I'm extremely superstitious. I usually do the same thing if it works. And if something doesn't work, I change it. I'm very superstitious. Other than Mills, or as Super would call me, Malils, the reoccurring nickname is probably Batman.
Door. Customs. Good job.
And now that you've heard from Batman, we can go straight to the map veto. And well, maps is one thing that you and I kind of talked about, went back and forth, because it can kind of emulate what style of play these 2 teams want to go at.
No, EQ4, you're going to typically see a team like them go to something more stock standard. They're more pug stack built. That's how their roots are built off of. And yeah, they're a real team now. And Oregon, repeating the map that they played against Aerial Arise, EQ4 feel like they've got the better shot at it. The other end, HK Rebels, they haven't played Oregon since SFCL. And the most recent time that they did it, only once that I could tell throughout the main season and throughout playoffs, it was in the first round of the lower bracket playoffs. So is Oregon the place for HKR to go? Maybe. I'm not too sure what the Rebels are thinking of, whether or not, okay, maybe there's not too much VOD about us or anything like that. But you saw the most recent, or latest ban rather, from the Rebels was actually Bank. So they didn't want to go where they just got smoked on by Oxygen yesterday. They wanted to go to Oregon, try something different. Maybe it'll end up being better for them.
And so EQ does have that track record on Oregon. It's a little bit of a clean slate for HK Rebels, but looking at the predictions, it's once again very one-sided, but there is something that jumps out. Forceful and Taco, both at that 90%, one of them will be going down. And I know Forceful, he had some of the big upsets yesterday, so maybe he just kind of knows something we don't. But I still like you going with that stable HK Rebels pick. That makes my heart feel a little better.
I know. I really tease you you on some of the picks that I make. I mean, I predicted the collegiate connoisseurs to upset Parabellum, but that's because I got harped on real bad about that. But nevertheless, to say anything different, I do think that the HK Rebels will end out on top. I liked a lot of the adaptive measures they took against Oxygen, things like that. They were a very solid team. You saw some coordinated takes, and a team like EQ4 banning out Ying against Aerial Rise when they played just 2 nights ago. That makes me a little bit concerned, and EQ4 also struggling to hold the sites, like we've mentioned. They're not amazing at being able to hold on to the bomb site in those last minute executes, and that's what HK Rebels, I think, are going to be able to strive up. I think that HK are really going to be very good at coordinating their takes and going and hitting the bomb site for their executes.
Ying is still another ban for EQ. It might be one where it's just like no matter what the map, unless it's very specialized, they just want to get Ying off the board. Doesn't really fit with their play style. But on the other side, HK Rebels going for the Nook. That's not too much of a surprise as well, but that means that something like Jackal is going to be in play. So that last defensive ban probably going to be along the likes of a Valkyrie. Kaid has somewhat playtime in Oregon, so he should probably make it through. Maybe see him up on the second floor, but Wamai instead for EQv4. So we're gonna have to see if Valkyrie does get some playtime tonight.
Well, curious choice by EQv4, but I promise you we'll see a lot of Valkyrie. Duke really striving on it, and there it is. The pick is in. Duke loves Valkyrie, loves playing this operator. We saw in the Aerial Rise matchup how effective those black eye cameras really were for feeding that information, especially for the opening picks. Like we had said earlier, Duke, very good at taking those initial engagements. That's something that Rebels have to be very cautious of if they want to provide and be successful here on their Oregon attacks. EQv4, they only won 1 defense when they played against Aerial Rise, so they hope to change that narrative as well.
So going back to their previous opponents, we talked about how they didn't really have a good draw, but it feels like this is much more of an equal matchup. Like they are in that kind of mid to maybe lower tier T3, that both of these teams definitely got a good draw in those quals. They probably got one of the easier groups in the closed quals. So we'll see which one of those teams, well, if they can actually out-duel each other, but it still does feel a lot more like an equal matchup, and we'll have to see how these first couple rounds, maybe it'll dictate the story of the entire match, but obviously our eyes are on those roamers, more importantly Duke.
This match will definitely play more into the eyes of these teams. I mean, both of their last matches, shorter games rather, they were kind of blowouts, not very close as well as the score lines, but these two teams evenly matched. Duke definitely kind of carries the weight for EQ4. HK Rebels, Doug is a player you like to pivot off of, but they're a team that will get the frags all the way out through the depth of the roster. EQ4, maybe not so much. Burnt Turkey getting very aggressive here on this drop will damage Duke, but not bring him down. So the main fragger for EQ4 still alive. Zez actually to kick things off on the castle. So good things to see from him. He's the newest pickup. EQ4 did not qualify with Zez, but actually picked him up after Haiku decided to leave. So EQ4 replacing Haiku, and Zez opening it off.
And we'll have to see if that Rebels aggression will actually come to hurt them in the end. Vipoa has entered kitchen. I don't know if he's aware of Duke. He isn't aware that Duke has pushed up now, and now he's met with a bullet to the face. So not a great start for HK Rebels. They have 2 players off the board that have a lot of utility, a lot of fragging power, but you still do have Doug, Burnt Turkey, who can wield a gun, and you still have Rai, who can drill into those hatches, which are getting opened up. There's a lot of time for HK Rebels to work off of, so they can drone out, be calm about it, but the thing is, EQ have information. You can see the yellow ping being used as Duke is just calmly waiting by the meeting. There could be 2 kills waiting around the corner, and I do not see a way in which HK Rebels can counter Duke, because it's like he's playing Kavera. I don't know what it is about this player, but he will emerge. He's taking his time, being patient, and eventually he will strike.
Incredible discipline from Duke. Finally will pull the trigger. And Rai not even sure where the kill came through. Will get the refrag. So Doug falls, and Rai with the response. Or not Doug to fall, but I believe it was Burnt Turkey to fall. Rai with the response, however. And 40 seconds boiling down on the row into the round. EQ4 with the advantage, but they're slowly tossing it away, just as they did in the Aerial Arise matchup. Rai to find their second on the round.
And this cannot happen for EQv4 to constantly get these early advantages and then just eventually give it away, but it might not happen here. The shotgun blast to Doug's face makes it a 1v3 as Rai goes for a long rotate. With only 15 seconds left, he's probably going to drop down E-Box, maybe go for the close sight play, but he's immediately spotted by the information that EQv4 just seems to have at all times. So a good first round, but it's about maintaining that consistency throughout, isn't it?
They got the opening pick there. Kicking off was Zez, finding their second on the round later on. But really, it came down to HK Rebels losing picks early and not being able to account for Duke. That was the big breaker in that round, letting the Valkyrie go unnoticed, undroned in Meeting Hall. They should have been aware of the positioning of the Valkyrie. I believe Duke was able to get a kill from Meeting, or from Kitchen, rather. So they must have just assumed that he went away. Instead, continued throughout Meeting Hall and ended up winning out the round for their team. EQ4 to lead it off. They threw a little bit to Rai. So again, that's kind of something that we're concerned about, is seeing EQ4 throw those bodies at the end of the rounds, get undisciplined. That's something to be concerned, and HK Rebels certainly have that clutch gene.
In going off of that point, this site was a prime example against Aerial Arise of when they kind of let that site go, of when it was essentially a 5v3, just like we saw in the last round, 30 seconds left, and just EQ4 get stagnant. Like their bodies just kind of become rigid, their minds become singular focused, and they just let one or two players slip by, and there goes the round. But so far, a good first round, and now it's just, like I said, about maintaining this positive attitude, maintaining that consistency overall, as EQv4 still extending off of the site. Not very surprising considering what we've talked about, but Zez already in small tower looking to get a pretty big peek, but Burnt Turkey has the information. He doesn't have the exact whereabouts of Semi, and that means he's only going to take some damage, not even give any over to EQv4, and now you just kind of have to accept that, well, that's a kill gone by.
Nearly disastrous there for the Rebels. Was Semi able to get a little bit of damage there on the Burnt Turkey. Nothing to come of it though, so they'll still be able to run around the map and potentially open anything with those pocket hard breeze charges. The dorms though will be the site of choice, but Semi still hanging out in the tower, trying to prevent that attic take from being made. Right now, EQ4 playing very safe and on site, I would say. There's a good amount of bodies that are just kind of stacked around the bomb site. Some burn going through. Rebels with early control here in a trophy. Many teams like to fight and really hold this trophy control. Instead, EQ4 thinking of more of a far back strategy. Let's let the Rebels come in. Let's make them execute. That's something that the Rebels are very good at, so we'll have to see if that pans out well for EQ4.
You'd see Rebels just kind of waiting to get that walk-in closet open, and it's because of Doug. You have that smoke. It is just going to ping-pong back and forth, eventually makes its escape, and Rai is in that corner. Is there going to be a smoke canister? Is there going to be a C4? It does damage to Rai, but the diffuser is going to be able to get down, and Rai is able to get out. Z kills Semi with his own smoke, and it seems like EQv4 just not prepared for what Rebels were bringing to the table. It's that amazing adaptation that we talked about in the pre-show. These two players from EQ, they're gonna push forward when only Duke in the 1v3. He looks really both ways, outside in trophy. There's one on the window as well. He gets that one on the balcony, now positions towards the trophy, but Rebels being smart, knowing they have time on their side, they back off. All it takes is one little peek. Now Duke has no chance of winning this round, even if he gets the kill. It does not matter, and I think Doug just, well, add it to the stats at that point.
That's the danger of letting HK Rebels execute. I mean, that's exactly what we saw. They brought the sense. It was incredible play design there from the sets, using those rolling flash or smokes, rather, using the rolling smokes. It's one of the newer
ROU.
operators, the ROU. That's what it's called. Okay. So the ROU, right, using those, throwing it against the foosball table. That blocked off the white stairs holes. That's the rotation that is commonly made by those defenders. And then as well, it went a little bit deeper. Also threw it where the typical default plant spot is. So being unpredictable exactly where that plant was going to go down, Rai actually jumped up onto the couch, did what, you know, most parents tell your kids not to do, is jumping on the couch. Don't jump on the furniture, Rai. Jumped onto the table, went and planted in more of an unorthodox spot than maybe what you would expect, and the Rebels get away with an incredible plant. The post plant was played perfectly. I mean, flawlessly executed. Well done to them. Rai being able to get out with their life, with that gas grenade just continuing to take the damage away. Not enough done. The gas in denial too late from EQ4, and HK Rebels walking away with an incredible attack route.
I'm just so happy we get to see something like that. So different, unique, and it leads to a victory as well. Like, it was exciting to see the smoke plant, but when it actually all kind of clicks together and you get a round victory out of it, it feels so earned than something else. And, well, Rebels, they're not going to bring anything as unique as something like this sends. They're just kind of continuing with those more default operators. Buck on this side, maybe just shooting up on that second floor, but it's going to require actually taking care of the roamers on the first floor. Rebels can't just directly go to the site like they did in the previous round. They're going to have to deal with Duke. They're going to have to deal with Zez, and that was something they struggled with in the first round.
A completely different take and execute coming in now, this time from the west side of the map. The junkyard spawns and the small tower clear will take place. Vipoa also bringing the buck to try to alert some vertical pressure and try to dislodge these defenders from playing in their positions within the kids' dorms and the big window. We'll see if that ends up coming to place. But first, it's Duke tasked with trying to fend off this below pressure. Nade will come through, do a little bit of damage, and force Duke to drop down the freezer hatch. So that initial control has left, but it's very easy to get back up the freezer stairs and still be able to contest and cause major problems here for the HK Rebels attack.
Yeah, Z up on that second floor. The smoke very important when it comes to this really dorms hold. He could have had a bigger impact on the round if he had just deployed that smoke canister quicker, but it just wasn't at the most opportune time. We'll see if it has any more impact, because the lower that timer ticks, the better smoke is. As HK Rebels still kind of focusing on that first floor, you're gonna see their sight actually shift to the site itself, with Rai putting in a Rotero. Vipoa probably going to actually use that skeleton key shotgun to shoot out that floor, maybe send some defenders sprawling. But there is that first kill. It's going to be Semi. Doug is immediately traded out by Zez. A bullet, not a C4, but it is still one that HK Rebels can have a little satisfaction knowing that they've already made a dent in this defense.
Well, and here comes the HK Rebels now trying to work their way up the white stairs, but they've still got to deal with Duke, who will take down Millie, so things not looking great for them on the game's repel. Not able to find anything as the Nomad. Zach will bring down Rai, so the man with the diffuser has fallen to the ground now. Vipoa brings down, or is brought down by Z, so now it's down to Burnt Turkey, who's on that game's repel. Will hop into white, able to bring down Z, but has to fight 3 more defenders with only 30 seconds left in the round. No diffuser in hand, low amount of HP, and the ARX, you don't have a lot of bullets, you really got to win your fights quickly to be able to try to take on that next engagement. They'll whip out the pistol, not able to do so though. Zez on that retake down below, making big impact and causing hell for the Rebels.
So it's just another thing that they, yes, it was more site centralized, but they still had trouble in dealing with those players over by kitchen, over by dining. It's a central theme so far that HK Rebels have struggled to go with. The basement is where we are going to head next. EQv4 had a wonderful time when they went here previously. So what is the adaptation that Rebels need to do? So I see a lion, but how is that lion going to be used by HK Rebels to sniff out Duke and Zez? They're changing to a Dekebi, so clearly they're kind of weighing their options, but I need to see something probable coming out from the attack before I really get confident in them.
The adaptability and interchangeableness of the HK Rebels to be able to attack anywhere around the map. They're very well versed in practice in their attacks, and that's why they're such a fun team to watch attack. Watching them throughout SFCL Season 5, you saw a lot of really creative attacks being brought out by Madman and by the other coach for the Rebels, which I'm finding them right now, Debos. So both of these coaches, very creative in their strat making ability. They love to be able to cause hell for the other team, and they love the teamwork that and camaraderie that is really used by the HK Rebels. EQv4 with a different style defense. They want to extend very heavily into meeting, a very heavy presence, no elbow presence, so it leaves that vulnerable to the rush. But the reason why you open that entire electrical box wall from the meeting hatch is so that you can see into elbow, you can see into blue, and you can deny a rush entirely. That's Zez's job up there in meeting as the castle.
Okay, I think that might be it is a Gemini clone.
Oh, thank God.
Semi has been spotted. Though I was like, is he gonna shoot? But no, it is not a real person, it's a holograph. I got fooled. I got pranked. Mason. So Semi's going to be able to survive for now, continue just making a lot of rotates, but he knows that really the hunt is on for him. He could be an early casualty. The drone will eventually get taken down, probably diverted his attention for a little bit too long there, but it's really not just Semi. He's got friends. Zez over by the green hall, spots ahead. He's going to go for it again, barely missing the head, just centimeters away from it. Now just another casualty. Duke will eventually die. Currently 6-3, and that is a big burden gone from the shoulders of HK Rebels. They can contend to actually take out Sem, to take out the remaining players. Now that they don't have to worry about this scourge, Semi goes for another peek with the shotgun, but does not have the handling on that one. So after all that, it seems that HK Rebels have made some small changes that have helped them.
Semi should have more than likely tried to play their life in there and just wasted a little bit more time. They tried to get back to their home in the bomb site, but with that vertical play being opened up by Doug, it was pretty much a free kill for him. Duke falling early, though, is something that's definitely concerning for the EQ4 defense, because when the HK Rebels go for their execute, I'm not sure what they're going to be able to do about it. Zez, though, they've made their way back up the tower stairs, but perfect flank watch being established by Burnt Turkey is very well aware of what Zez was trying to do. Instead, though, will leave away, so more than likely tabs have been kept up for the drone still there in tower. Smoke grenades to go on through as HK Rebels need to crack on into the bomb site. Zach will bring down Doug. The shotgun and the smoke grenade combo will bring down Bipolar. Burnt Turkey able to bring down Zach. Zez with a refrag. So now it's left to Burnt Turkey to clutch a 1v2.
And he has the skills to pay the bills. The SMG-12 has got a little bit of kick, but does that DMR have ammo? It does not. Burnt Turkey is allowed to reload, but the super shorty, they're low. The health was low enough. In the end, it didn't even matter. So EQ, they get a 2-round lead, and it seems that the main problem you and I talked about, really just relinquishing those man count leads, they've kind of remedied that.
Doing a really great job. It seems like the Rebels just aren't prepared for EQ4 to run around. They continue to run around, cause absolute hell for the attackers, and they distract them by putting them on these flank watches. I mean, EQv4, they had the disadvantage going on in that round, and unlike their matchup against Aerial Rise, they've been able to hold on to this bomb site and absolutely lock HK Rebels out. That's really coming down from the big performance out of Zez today, a player that I didn't think was going to make as much of an impact in this matchup as they have so far. 6-1 so far on the stat line is absolutely very helpful if you're trying to win a match.
That was kind of a trend in that first round of games, was a lot of new pickups didn't perform as well as they probably, are expected to. I mean, you've got Zez on EQv4, you had Spiff on Astralis, Packer and Silent as well. So maybe it's just that first game jitters that they're trying to work out, but it would be a welcome sight to see a lot of these players actually start to find their groove, and it makes for a more exciting siege as well.
Duke was the only performing player for, it's not even prep phase, so you can't even make that excuse. Zez, doing a lot of damage. I tried to make the excuse for him and be like, oh, next season, just wait a little bit. Too much test over. Nope, not even that. Not even that. There's no excuse throwing impacts at your teammates. It's not very nice, Zez, but maybe they're very confident in the round. We'll have to see how things pan out. But look at HK Rebels. Very aggressive all the way up through trophy already. Zez follows the man we've been talking about and highlighting so much, being kind of that side pair to Duke, who's always been showing up on the scoreboard, now no longer available.
Interesting to note, that is Millie's first kill of the game so far, getting himself on the scoreboard. A welcome sight as well. You saw his interview earlier. He had a lot to say. It's something about HK Rebels is they feel like they are a confident team. You don't want to use the word cocky because they are a good group of players, and that could really elevate themselves to another level, is when you believe in yourself so much you will play at a certain level. So currently, EQv4 humbling HK Rebels a little bit so far, but there's a lot of siege to go. We're not even halfway through the game. I think once we really get in the groove, HK Rebels maybe find a couple more to their name, we could really be in for a big treat.
A C4 could be absolutely detrimental and deadly if it lands on the Millie. Zach's right there below. The C4 goes through, but pulls the trigger way too late. Millie's escaping with their life, and now EQ4 forced to fight with their guns, but Zach will just run right under the hatch. A very poor decision on this kitchen dining defenses. That's the main focal point of this take that the HK Rebels are currently running right now. They want that vertical control. They want to be able to drop down on the bomb site, and here as they continue to drone and find these remaining defenders, the execute comes through.
Ooh, and here it is. A lot of players off site for EQv4. Rai is inside planting. He does not get the diffuser down. There was milliseconds away from really getting it down. And now EQ4, they kind of get a little bit of a break here because Rebels have to hop down, get the diffuser, get on it, and Semi, it was the jackpot. Right there, Mason, and unfortunately, it just leaves your lone player alone in an impossible to win 1v3 scenario there. So EQv4, they could not complete the real rotation, but still, 3 is enough that you could probably add another one to that, make it a 4-2-1/2.
For a team that struggled on their defenses versus aerial rise, they're looking much better here. In that case, nearly able to stop that entire take and plant from the HK Rebels. They used all their utility, dropped down the hatch. Rai trying to get it down, just tossing a prayer up, hoping for that coverage. It was almost there, but I believe it was Z who slipped away with the Azami, and EQ4 taken away, or nearly taken away a round, but the HK Rebels doubled up there on the white stairs. Semi wasn't too sure who to shoot. Didn't end up landing either of the headshots. Could have potentially won the round for their team. Instead, HK Rebels able to win it out, but that's expected on that tertiary bomb site. But back to dorms we go. The HK Rebels are 1 for 1 on this bomb site. EQv4, same thing can be said for them.
All right, we're halfway through gauging how these two teams are doing. It feels like EQv4 is doing better, like they have fixed a lot of what we said. HK Rebels, we've seen some glimpses of what we saw against Oxygen, but they're still struggling a little bit against this team. It's obviously still a lot of the roam presence, but these past couple rounds, it's been dealt with decently well, but Duke mainly over by this dining hall. Will the drone spot him? Because Rebels seem to be going for a mainly trophy-sided take. It doesn't actually require heading over to the small tower. So this could be a very little quick execution from them if they spot EQv4 just kind of lollygagging.
Well, EQv4, Doug's Twitch drone finally to be shot down before it can take down too much utility, but Millie's very aggressive up here in Trophy. There goes the final ADS, so a very easy clear here onto both of these deployable shields and need to go through, but ends up destroying Doug's Twitch drone. It's done the work, though. It's really gotten just about everything it needs to. Utility has been cleared out, so EQv4, they'll be forced to play further back and with less protection set up around the entire bomb site.
Yeah, less protection. That is going to benefit Rebels, and now less guns to use as well. So everybody on EQ is actually inside of sight. Defending Duke backs all the way down to that second floor, and there is Doug waiting with loving open arms. And now White Stairs is free for Rebels to control. So EQ, the walls are kind of closing in around them. There's a player in Trophy, there's a player on the White Stairs, a player by walk-in closet, and these smoke canisters, they're only going to last so long. Millie's finds Semi all the way over by dorms. Z makes sure it's not a flawless round, but it's going to take a lot more than that. Maybe it's going to take Zach over in Attic, taking the head off of Vipoa, and just like that, the tides have changed a little bit. HK Rebels can't just barrage themselves into the site, and Z still has smoke canisters as well. He's going to have to make something work. He on ADSs at the last second. isn't really prepared for a lot of those engagements. So at the end of it all, it's a 3-3. We're swapping sides.
HK Rebels, they play with a good pace, and when they need to call off the charge, they do so. It's exactly what they did. They were ready for their execute, but then they slowed down for a second. They started losing some bodies. They lost their advantage that was so heavy at that 5v2 and went down to go to a 3v2. So we'll see what happens here for the Rebels as we've got a little bit of a pause. Rehost potentially going on through, so it's like we're going to be taking a slight break, so we'll go into a rehost, the side swap. It's kind of a decent time, at least if we're going to rehost. It's not like it seems in the middle of an attack or in the middle of a defense. It really resets, gives everyone a mental reset, and the entire map becomes reset. It's essentially a shorter competitive game.
I mean, it is halftime. Like, we gotta have the
where's the
halftime
band?
show.
Where's the band? Where's the halftime show? Where's all that?
Sponsored by State Farm. You got to get the apple slices, the little carrot sticks, hand them out to all the players because they're doing a great job. It just reminds me of. Did you play like youth soccer?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So okay. So
I was the kid picking the flowers.
You know what I'm
though.
talking about.
I was the kid picking the flowers and.
Were you that type of player, Klimps?
Oh, I was. Absolutely.
Of course.
I was.
Of course.
In soccer, absolutely, I was the kid picking flowers. I had no interest at all. I barely watch soccer at all unless it's like the World Cup. I've started to watch a little bit. I've got like a lot of people in my classes. So it's soccer. It's not football. Max,
soccer.
I know you're listening. Max, I know you're listening. It's soccer.
Yeah, going over these two teams though at the halftime show, EQv4, those last couple rounds, the roamers like Duke and Zez did not have the impact. I mean, kind of going over like entry stats, Zez was the first death in those last two rounds. Duke had one entry, I think, compared to what he had against Ariel. So he doesn't really have that staying power against what could be considered a quote-unquote worse team than Ariel Arise. But it just could be that HK Rebels kind of know what is being brought. Maybe they looked at the Oregon game, or they just kind of know how to play around this particular players.
Yeah, that could be the case. I'm really not too sure why Duke struggled so much on the entry, and he was nullified, but Zez stepped up. Not only were they opening death the last two rounds, sure that happened, but they were also opening engagement a lot of the rounds and really stepping in and filling in, hey, look, Duke's not able to get those opening picks. I need to do something to go help out my team, my new team for Zez, and being able to do that, it's been a benefit. It's definitely one of the reasons that we've seen EQ4 win so many of their defensive rounds. At least, 3 defensive rounds, it's about typical for what you expect on Oregon. You might even expect 4, but compared to what they had against Aerial Rise just 2 days ago, it's certainly an upgrade.
We take those, but a lot of times what we've seen from teams is the first half has been close, and then once the sides have swapped, it's just been a race to the finish for whoever kind of gets that lead. I mean, Stay Safe, S2 Parabellum was like that. We saw that on the Vipers game, which we'll talk about later. We'll get there, don't worry. And the same for what I believe was also the Aerial Rise game. We saw some of that against EQv4, but we are heading back in, seeing who is going to get that fabled first round of that second half. As HK Rebels, they get to start on the defense, and we're going to see how their roamers kind of spread around there, see what they can do on the entry.
Well, the HK Rebels, they're looking to start out here in the basement. Laundry supply, they will go, and more than likely a completely different strategy from the EQ4 team, I imagine. I don't think they're going to have as heavy of an emphasis inside a meeting hall, opening up the electrical wall. I think we're going to see something more stock standard, more default from the Rebels. That's a team, they like to do a little bit more of those standard holds, but we'll find out. They've got that entire freezer wall blasted open, and that makes when you're doing a freezer take as an attack so much more difficult. Sure, you can't play that very safe bomb spot, commonly known as Chala, due to a incredible play by him when he was playing in the league. But on that bomb chassis right there, typically the wall just next to it is reinforced, and you'll see players crouch by it and try to hold anyone from walking in either laundry or freezer. It's a tricky spot to clear out, but that won't matter to either side. It also makes attacks very uncomfortable to walk through because it's an extra angle. It's more line of sight that they can be shot from, and it's just one extra thing they have to take into account.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some attacks from freezers from HK Rebels. I mean, Absolutely brazen. Duke still gonna struggle on entries, as I believe that was all the way over by Master Bedroom. So, I mean, I think the only thing that would sting more than losing your sledge would be losing your ace. You don't have any soft destruction, you don't have any frag grenades, and you probably lost a set of drones. So EQv4, they're gonna have to work with an arm behind their back, but I mean, Zez has really stepped up. We mentioned it when Duke has kind of been put down into the ground, so I think eyes are gonna be on him in this second half.
At spawn peak does a lot for the HK Rebels. It really benefits them because Duke does so much droning for EQ4, gives so much of that information, and let alone when he's on the battlefield, he's a difference maker. And him not being available here for this first attack, it's really going to be difficult for EQv4 to be able to push on through.
And so we're going to have to see utility play could be the answer. I mean, just proper droning, make sure that anybody who kind of just steps too far away gets punished, but nobody on Rebels is roaming. They're doing that strategy in basement that really is only useful in like the basement of Oregon. I don't even know if you have any other sites like that. Maybe basement on Clubhouse, but you just stack everybody in the site. You keep it there, wait for the attack to come to you because there's really not much vertical play. It's just the hatches and you got to cover certain areas. So EQv4, they're just gonna kind of show a little bit of a, you know, northeastern side take, a little bit from blue, a little bit from E-box, but they have a lot of time to waste. Millie's runs forward. I mean, he saw where the flashbang was coming from. He had to know somebody was there, but either way, that's a lot of utility gone, but 2 immediate refrags. Vipoa found 2? Somehow, apparently there was somebody behind the Flores, so despite EQv4 finding some little frags right there, it's just HK Rebels immediately tapering over that wound.
Wow. EQ4 definitely struggling without Doug on that execute, already being a man down, but it came to dealing with the oboe player. Not only did you have Millies just run at this guy outside bunker, but you also had Vipoa do the exact same thing. He was just very confident, very aggressive, and who expects 2 from there? I mean, EQv4, I just like I'm not expecting 2 guys to just run out of elbow and swing me, and that's more than likely why the EQ4 players were lined up, why they were kind of back-to-back, and it allowed Vipoa to get that double kill, which, hey, if you're going to sacrifice burnt turkey for 2 people, I'm taking that trade. I'm sorry. Or it was Millie's, rather. I'm sorry, Millie's, but I'm sacrificing you for 2 bodies every single day of the week because that's putting my team in the advantage, and that's what they need. HK Rebels able to take away that round. EQ4 just dropping 1 by 1, and eventually it fell short.
Just sit him down. Some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. Really pulling out the Shrek quotes in the end there, because I mean it kind of does apply there. It is I guess was for the greater good in the end there. But Doug not gonna go for the same style of peak. I mean, I am expecting him to continue to try to peek because that's just the type of player he is. He's over by small tower. You do see a couple players spawning over there, so we'll keep our eyes and our ears out if he makes any headway. But so far, EQv4 staying alive, doing a little bit better than they did in the early start of last round.
We'll see what happens here with this engagement that Doug has set up. A little bit of a rotation hole and some weird bailiff holes being made out by the Oryx, and they'll be able to dash away quickly. They'll bring down Zez, so this time the Zofia to fall on the early opening pick. And well, Zez was on Ace last round, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was something else, but Rai able to bring down Semi. Doug being very aggressive here into the small tower. Will shoot on the player that hops on in. Duke able to finally get a response here, bringing down Rai, but the soldiers have been called through. Millies brings down Duke. Zach will fall to Doug, and EQv4, they can't even get into the damn building past the dining room. Doug to close it out, and Z falls as well. HK Rebels taking a 2-round sweep.
I mean, this is kind of what we were expecting the struggles of HK Rebels to happen. EQv4 is looking lost when trying to take down Doug and company on the roam. I mean, he hasn't really been touched either in these 2 rounds. He's been able to mess up these attacks without even putting his body really in the line at all. You could just see finding one, getting one through the soft wall. It's just like easy as pie. He makes it look as seamless as possible.
And the HK Rebels have gotten the opening pick, I believe, 4 or 5 rounds in a row, and that's really been the difference maker in this match. I mean, HK Rebels stringing together 4 rounds straight. They've got the momentum in favor. We had a little lull in the action between halftime, but HK Rebels continue to pick up that momentum and are going through. EQ4 not doing the best. Their attacks have been slow and they've been stagnant. They've not been something really of anything to watch. HK Rebels continue to strive forward.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think we haven't really seen a true attack from EQv4. That first run, they didn't have a player. They got messed up immediately when they tried. It wasn't a real execution. That second round was just a slaughter from the beginning. Doug going for another peek. EQv4, though, they're still spawning by Junkyard, so Rai could actually be the first player to meet them right at the crossroads. As you can see, he's got that shield that he's able to use as cover. That's a lot of times why you might have this soft wall open, because Rai can just duck right back and forth, duck, dive, dip, dash, and dodge away from any EQv4 members he sees. But he's gonna try to waste time, waste utility, because so far that's what everybody on HK Rebels has been able to do.
All right, looking to get spicy with these engagements, still trying to clean out this opening pick here for HK Rebels, continue their streak. But EQv4, they've made their way in through small tower, and this time they only have to attack kitchen, but they struggled last round. I mean, they were going for a Dorm's take and they could barely even get through this half of the map, but HK Rebels giving a little bit more room for EQ4 to play with, as they've got more of a grasp onto the bomb site. Lots of utility already being utilized and essentially wasted here by EQv4. I mean, they've just now trying to get the dining wall open. They've already used so much utility.
And the first bullets have been fired straight into the body of Zez. You see, he was trying to get the Mew Jammer off so they could actually open up that reinforced wall. It wasn't successful. So not only do they lose a player, they lose another way to actually deal with that Mew Jammer. The frag grenades from EQv4 do find a victim, do find a piece of utility. So things have started to go right for this team, but Burnt Turkey is unable to be confirmed. So it seemed like an opportunity is immediately going to be wasted away, as now they're going to have to drone, they're going to have to find information, because if they just immediately rush on into the site, it's going to be a bloodbath.
It's been difficult to deal with Doug here on this kitchen table on the island, really, in the center of the bomb site. There's not a great way to be able to go for the plant. I mean, they don't even have hatch control, so I have no idea what EQ4's plan is to just walk on in. It's not going to happen, and there it is. They just get cleaned up by the entirety of the Rebels' defense. EQ4 not able to do anything in that round other than get through kitchen dining, just as they had failed the round before. Open up the site wall, but it came to an absolute stop there, and HK Rebels advance themselves on a match point.
That's 5 in a row, Mason. We're going to see a timeout. It might be from EQv4. I don't know, like technical.
Definitely.
It's all just guessing at this point. But I mean, it is a different team, it feels like, than we saw on that first half. EQv4, I think going up against Aerial, they had 1 attack. Was it? No, 2 attacks, because they did get 1 round. So we really didn't actually see what ability they had on the attack. Here is a much better look, and it's not even a better look. It is a worse look for them, because they are sputtering. They are really unwilling to even take HK Rebels at face value. Nothing seems equal on their side. I mean, there's been 4 players left alive, 4 players left alive. That was a flawless round. I think EQ have gotten 2 kills when we've swapped sides. It's a
rough,
harsh look. Yeah,
it's been really rough for EQv4. I mean, they thrived off the opening pick on their defenses, but now that they have not gotten it for 5 rounds in a row, it shows. It really does. I mean, the opening pick is one of those things that we do keep track of statistically in Siege, and there's an important reason why. It has a major impact on the rest of the round, especially if there's no refrag or trade to come of it. And EQv4, they've failed to get the refrag in every single situation. They lose a body and there's no response, and it doesn't come until way later in the round when it's too late. You don't have the man count, and the HK Rebels are just playing better as a team together.
I also think that the server is stuttering, so you might see like just slight lags from everybody, but it's more like it's definitely a server problem, less of an individual problem. But clearly, I mean, HK Rebels, it doesn't even matter for them because they've just been able to manhandle EQ so far. But match point, we're not over yet. Maybe this will be the turning point that EQ really needs. Obviously, the first step, don't lose Duke. He is one of your 2 players to get a kill ever since we rehosted at halftime. And one of those rounds, he ended up in the grave within the first 15 seconds.
Duke has been silenced by the HK Rebels as of now, and that may continue. He really needs to wake up if EQ4 want any chance at continuing this match and sending us into overtime. But right now, I just don't see that happening. Duke has continued to struggle in these opening engagements, which he's usually so successful at. He's been punished very often by Doug, and if that continues to be the case, HK Rebels will close out this match relatively soon.
So EQ, they are going to start that first phase. They spot Vipo underneath, who uses a C4. Zez.
Oh, blow it.
No.
Oh my gosh.
They saw him.
What a read. I mean, what an incredible read, right? To pre-place the C4. I don't know if there's information upstairs or what it was, or if just straight audio. I mean,
It's
you can hear
intuition.
things in the game sometimes, but great play. Incredible play that could have been maybe discussed in the tactical timeout. Maybe the coach for HK Rebels was able to notice something of that manner. An impact to go through, trying to make some noise, but Doug has been drilling. Their position's been alerted to, and they need to get out as fast as possible. Instead, they're just going to sit here, try to waste as much time, but they'll lose their life to Semi, who's on the rappel.
So there's something for EQ. I mean, in almost every one of these rounds, it's really been a one-sided affair. Just a snowball of kills come out on the side of HK Rebels. But this round is slightly different. You don't see just a 4v1. No, it's actually Doug going down as an equalizer to Zez dying. So it's a 4v4. EQ have time to work with. They have information. They have a lot, and they dealt with the roamers. So they have, honestly, all the puzzle pieces that they really need, Mason. But they've honestly struggled to even put them together, even when they've had the opportunity.
It all comes down to the execute. That's the biggest moment right now here for EQv4. Can they make an entry onto the bomb site? Things have evened back out. Says 0-4 since the rehost. Definitely not too great. Not a great sight to see. And really, the entirety of EQv4 have struggled since we've been at that even mark. However, there's a chance for them to take lead in this round, take charge, and at least try to pull back themselves a little bit closer. But Millies will dispatch another Toxic Babe, and this freezer take is going to be very difficult with this wall being opened and stripped across all the way.
I mean, this is what you kind of EQ have to bank on, and it's not a good thing you can rely on, is Miles Vipoa missing their shots, and it's just not going to happen. They can look down these angles. It's honestly just a murder hallway in the end there. Vipoa claims his third of the round, and it's just EQv4 waiting for the inevitable in the end. The GGs come out in the chat, and HK Rebels, I mentioned it might be a sprint to the finish line. We've seen that trend in a lot of these games, and this one falls straight into that pattern.
It's so odd seeing these matches go so close right up until the half, and then something clicks. One thing switches for a team, and the other team just cannot catch up, and that's exactly what we saw here tonight. HK Rebels taking down EQv4. Many of us predicting that to be the case, but maybe not in this dominant of a fashion.
I mean, I expected EQ to have something on their attack, but they didn't. And I mean, that's just really the decider in the end. You have to play both sides of Siege in a close competitive game, and you need to be good at them, or at least decent, if you want to win. And EQ, they brought the power for about 50% of the sides in Rainbow Six, and the other one, I guess they just ran out of gas.
Again, I don't know what happened with EQv4. I would have thought that they would have been very comfortable coming back to Oregon after what I would say is a good game for them against Aerial Arise. And HK Rebels, they just kept going, and it really came down to those opening picks, those opening engagements. EQv4 played Aerial Rise very close due to Duke making those opening engagements happen, but Duke had a quiet match tonight, not too great on their end, and that is kind of one of those reasons why EQv4 just fell short tonight.
And you can see just a lot of big plays coming out from EQ in that first half. And then just in the second one, it was really all Doug in the end there. He gets 1, he gets 2, he gets 3. And then in that last run, you did see Millie's claim a lot to his, or not Millie's, Vipoa, excuse me. The SAS confusing me a little bit there. But in the end, HK Rebels, they make sure that they do not get burned, go 0-3, but EQ put a lot more pressure on them. They are 1 match away from getting knocked out of SCS.
And that's scary. That's a scary situation to be in. EQ4, they made it through the first closed qualifier, which usually if you make it through the first closed qualifier, like that's almost a better sign that you're one of the better teams, because you've obviously played through the better competition, since there's 4 less teams that you're competing against to get into SCS. But in the second one, HK Rebels, that's where they came on through, and they took down some fairly competitive teams, I would say. And to see EQ4 falling down 0-2 early on in the season, HK Rebels to balance themselves back at 1-1, trying to hopefully levy their playoff hopes and their contention later down onto the season. But that's the beauty of SCS. Doug, player that we highlighted yesterday when we were doing the face behind the frag segment against Oxygen, became a fan favorite almost. Doug, everyone loves Doug. Very great personality, character. 4-0 on that entry, and that is one of the biggest differences of why HK Rebels took down EQ4.
Yeah, and then on the other side, you have the top player, Zez, went 1-5 on entry. So I mean, it was just the tale of 2 teams here. You can see how close that first half is, and then just all blue from there on out. So Doug, Ryra, Burnt Turkey, honestly everybody on HK Rebels had an impressive game. You can see the rating, actually everybody had a better rating than the top player on EQv4. Stats don't tell the whole story. It's kind of like a snapshot of everything, but just kind of plain sight. Aerial Rise felt closer than this one for EQv4.
Honestly, yes. Like,
yeah.
I agree. I think in a lot of that came down to, I keep harping on the subject, but the opening picks. I mean, you saw it, I mean, in the stats alone. So many opening deaths there for EQv4, and that is a major problem, and that's something they've really got to remedy and fix. I think Duke just had an off day, because Duke is one of those players, when he's in the lobby, he's always popping off. He's going crazy, does very well. So I believe, though, we may have an interview coming up here. Millies to come here.
Guys.
Well, Millies, you guys took home the win against EQv4, bouncing back from the loss, right?
Yeah.
Against Oxygen. You guys had a tough draw week 1. That's how the seeding just played out from qualifiers and everything like that. But what are some key factors that really got you guys the win here in this match against EQ4?
We knew they weren't going to be anywhere near the same caliber as Oxygen, so we kind of were like, we kind of just went into it saying, hey, let's relax, play the game. We kind of trolled in the beginning. I did specifically on entries. I kind of was a little too aggressive, but we cleaned it up and kind of just ran through them. That Oxygen game kind of set us up for like I don't want to say easier games, but we know we're better than a lot of teams, and that hardcore start kind of got us into gear. So.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be confident. Now, talking about trolling a little bit, your play with Vipoa, where you walked through elbow, the flashbang was thrown, and you were the smoke, and you took a very aggressive swing, ended up falling, but it set up 2 frags for Vipoa. What was that coordinated, or was that Vipoa just kind of reading you? You guys obviously are friends. I assume you guys have played together a lot. I remember casting you so often. So is that just one of those plays that came from you guys being friends and kind of playing along with each other, or what came to that?
A little bit of both. I've been playing with Vipoa long enough that he knows I'm extremely stupid, and I usually, when I do something like that, I usually say, hey, I'm gonna do something really stupid here. So I ended up swinging, and then Vipoa just did his job and traded me out. As a smoke, I shouldn't do that, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we knew after we went 3-3 on attack that we probably weren't gonna lose another round, so we started having fun.
Well, I'm gonna trade 2 frags for 1 any day of the week. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. So getting that advantage definitely very good. Not a lot of time in between matches. You guys were the last match yesterday against Oxygen, and you had to turn around right back, come play the next day against an opponent you didn't find out until just after your match. What is it like trying to prepare for a match like that? Trying to did you guys get the chance to do any VOD review, or is there really not much review you got to do on EQ4?
We've played them and scrimmed them before. We know how they play. We know that they're super ranked style, either gonna play really aggressive and take fights, or kind of just be in spots you don't really expect them. We have a good analyst in Debos, and we have a coach Madman who really do well with that kind of like VOD review stuff, even if we don't have time. So they really helped us out. They gave us some insight on how they were gonna play, and then we just took them to a default map, which we know where all the rat spots are and how to play it. So it really worked out in our favor.
Well, definitely, and obviously now being 1-1, that guys puts you in a little bit more forward of a position than you were just last night. And going on throughout the rest of the season, what are your expectations? Where do you guys think you're going to kind of finish this thing out at? I know everyone wants to go and take it out on top, but what do you see coming next for you guys coming into next week?
We knew at the beginning, once we got that Oxygen game, that we were going to be that storyline team. We did that agreement with everybody, so we're looking to go 3-1. Only have that
Good.
one loss to Oxygen, and then move on to the playoffs, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I've always loved watching you guys. Rai is someone that's close to me, and through collegiate, obviously. So, well, congrats on the win to you guys. If there's
Thank
anyone
you.
when you want to shout out, this is your time. The floor is yours, my friend.
I want to shout out Super for always being real with us. I love the fact that he hates us and yells at us. It's a good entertainment. Also, fuck Doug. That dude is a troll, and surprising that he's still here. And everybody that supports us, you guys mean the world to us, even if it's not real or not. But we love all you guys, so thank you.
Awesome. Well, Millies, go ahead, go celebrate, go get prepared for next week. Just got another day of matches to go on through.
Yes,
so
sir.
take care, my friend.
Thank you.
I'm surprised he doesn't break out the automaton. We saw it. We saw in the interview and behind his little mic stand there. But I mean, we've talked about this one. We had the interview. We just kind of got to wrap this one up, head on to the next game. But any closing thoughts between HKR and EQv4?
Kind of an expected result. I think that, the predictions really went along with HK Rebels taking this one out. But we'll see what comes of them next week. I mean, they're in that 1-1 spot now, and there's going to be a lot of teams in that 1-1 spot trying to put themselves up to 2-1 and trying to go as far as they can here in SCS. But for now, we'll go on to a break. We'll come back with S2 Vipers in just a few moments.